Eticien, moi, congratulations, Professor Kwasi Wiredu. First, I must apologize that I'm not there in person. I really wish I could be there, but I'd like you to know that I'm there in spirit. And when I say I'm there in spirit, I mean it in the ancient Kemetan or Egyptian sense that's linked all the way to Ka. In other words, there's an extent to which, in that linkage, we understand what it is to be with you even when we're not physically present, and for you to be with us because you, Professor Wiredu, are with me constantly as I do my work. And I don't mean that in a perfunctory manner as we are celebrating this joyous occasion. I mean it in the sense that before we've even met, I've taught your work for many, many years. In fact, I've taught your work throughout my career. And even more, tomorrow night, in a seminar in philosophy of culture, we will be having a discussion at which your ideas are central. Your contributions are so many. You are a treasure to what we in Africana, African diasporic philosophy, African philosophy, you are what we call a genuine inspiration. You inspire us because of the dignity, the perseverance, and the humility with which you have done your work of more than 60 years. We could talk about your contributions in philosophy of mind, philosophy of language, logic. We could talk about your concerns about human rights. We could talk about so many things. But one of the things I just briefly want to talk about is that insight you have about transcending translation. And what I mean by this is the error many people make, many theorists, many philosophers, is to think how one must bring, almost like conquest, like colonization, one other's thought into our own, which presupposes, which has the hubris of saying our thought by itself, our cultural framework, our language, encompasses everything else. Everything else must be subordinated to a subset of us. Yet what you have shown is that there are times in which we reach our limits, but that limit in the face of another requires a different path. It requires understanding what we bring and respecting what we need to learn. The idea that basic human grammar and understanding are foundations, right? That it is a foundation through which we are able to connect, to learn more, to build, to expand the human family, to understand that we're becoming part of something as something becomes part of us, is a pedagogical treasure, and a philosophical gift. I thank you for that. It's funny how people squirm around and try to find ways around your argument, but they miss the irony of it. Because at the end of the day, even if they were to say they don't quite understand it, if they're committed, they will take the time to learn it. I've taken the time to study your work, always with a term I don't always like to use, given my critique of certain economic behaviors, profit. But it's profit of the right kind. It's the profit of the mind, of the heart, and of the understanding that we live in a world together. So, I, a member of our community, not only our beloved community of African descent, but our beloved human community, am indeed privileged and honored to send you this message today, this message of moi, this message in which I simply want to say not only thank you, but to say that for me, your very young life is such precisely because when one thinks perennial ideas, we always stand before it as youth. Thank you, Professor Kwasi Wiredu.